I never moved on from that day. My name is Zarmina. I am 65 years old. And right now, I am sitting alone in my quiet house in California. The evening is fading, and the silence feels heavier than usual. There is a cup of tea beside me, cold now, and this old diary. I have kept it for more than 40 years. I don't open it often, because every time I do, I don't just remember the past. I go back and live it again. People say, time heals everything. But that's not true. Some memories never heal. They just learn how to stay quiet until one day they become louder than your present. And today, my past is louder than ever. That's why I am finally telling this story. My story. A story I never told my husband, never told my children, not even myself, because this is not just a story. This is my first love. The love I never forgot. The love I never moved on from. This story begins almost 50 years ago, when I was just 15. Back then, I had everything. A big house in New York, a rich father, a perfect life, or at least, that's what I believed. Every morning, a driver dropped me at school. Perfect uniform, perfect shoes, perfect life, until, one day, everything changed. I still remember that morning. Cold weather, foggy windows, students laughing, and then, the door opened. He walked in. I don't know why, but in that moment, everything stopped. His name was Ion. Simple clothes, worn out shoes, but his eyes. There was something in his eyes. Something deep, something real. The teacher said, he's here on a scholarship, and just like that, everyone judged him, but he didn't care. He quietly walked to the last bench, and I couldn't stop looking at him. Days passed, and somehow, he became the only person I noticed. He didn't talk much, but he knew everything. One day in class, no one could solve a problem, but he stood up and solved it perfectly. Everyone clapped, but I felt something change inside me. That day, I realized something. Respect doesn't come from money. It comes from strength. After that, I started going to the library, and somehow, he was always there. One day, our hands touched on the same book. He said, sorry. I said, it's okay. That was it. But somehow, that moment stayed with me. We started talking, then sharing, then understanding. One day, I asked him, why do you work so hard? He said, I don't have a choice. I have dreams. I can't afford to lose. That line, it never left me. But then, things started changing. People started talking, judging, whispering. I didn't care, but he did. He started avoiding me, and one day, I stopped him. Why are you avoiding me? He said. You don't understand. I said. Then explain. He looked at me and said, our worlds are not the same. I said, I don't care. He smiled, but not happily. You don't. But the world does. That night, I couldn't sleep. And the next day, something happened. Something that changed everything. Because that day, he said something to me. Something I was waiting for, without even knowing it. But what happened after that destroyed everything. And even today, after 40 years, I am still stuck in that moment. The day he said it, and lost me forever. That day, I still remember every second of it. The sky was cloudy, the air felt heavy, and for some reason, my heart wouldn't stay calm. I reached school early that morning, but something felt different. Too quiet, too strange. I looked for him everywhere. In the classroom, in the hallway, in the library. But Ion wasn't there. For the first time, he was missing. I don't know why, but fear slowly started growing inside me. The whole day passed, but he didn't come. That night, I couldn't sleep again. Something inside me kept telling me that something was wrong. The next day I went to school with only one hope, that I would see him, and I did. He was standing near the school garden, alone, but something about him had changed. His face looked tired, his eyes distant, like he had already made a decision I wasn't ready to hear. I walked towards him slowly, with a strange fear in my chest. Ion, I was looking for you, I said. He didn't reply. He just looked away. That hurts, more than I expected. Where were you yesterday? I asked. There was silence for a moment. Then finally he spoke. My mother is not well. I had to work extra. I might not be able to continue school. For a second, everything inside me froze. What do you mean, not continue? I asked. He took a deep breath and said, something I was not ready to hear. I might have to leave. That one word, leave, felt like someone took the ground from under my feet. No, you can't, I said quickly. You're the best student. You have a future. He smiled. But it wasn't a happy smile. Future is not for people like me. For the first time, I truly saw his reality, and I hated it. I'll talk to my father, I said quickly. He can help. He knows people. But he immediately said, no. His voice was firm. I don't want your help. That hurt more than anything. Why? I asked softly. He looked straight into my eyes, and then he said it. Because I don't want to anything from you. Especially not my heart. My heart stopped. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Sorry. I tried to stay away from you. But I couldn't. I tried to ignore you. But every time you smiled, I forgot everything. Tears filled my eyes. Because deep down, I already knew. I love you. Those words. The words I didn't even realize I was waiting for finally came. But instead of happiness, I felt fear. Because somewhere inside me, I knew. Love like this doesn't survive in the real world. I love you too, I whispered. And just like that, everything changed. We stood there in silence. To people who finally spoke the truth, but already knew they were losing each other. Then don't go, I said, almost begging. He closed his eyes, and for the first time, I saw tears in them. If I stay, I'll lose everything. And if I go, I'll lose you. That was the moment I realized. Some choices don't have a happy ending. He stepped back slowly, like every step was hurting him. Goodbye, Zarmina. And just like that, he turned and walked away. I didn't stop him. Maybe I should have. Maybe everything would have been different. But I just stood there, watching him leave, out of my life, forever. That was the day I learned. Love is not always enough. And even today, after 40 years, I still ask myself one question. What if I had stopped him? Because I never saw him again. Not for years. Not until life brought him back. In a way I never expected. After that day, my life felt like it had stopped. I still went to school every day, but nothing felt the same anymore. That last bench, always empty. The library looks like just a room now, and me. I was just existing, with a heart still stuck. In that moment when I watched him walk away, no one ever clearly told me what happened to Ion. Some said he left school, some said he moved away from the city. But the truth? I never found out, and maybe I never had the courage to look for it. Days turned into months. And slowly, my family took more control over my life. My father started watching everything. My friends, my routine, my behavior. Maybe he sensed something. Or maybe the world around him forced him to act. I was not the same girl anymore. I spoke less. I smiled less. I thought too much. But for them, it was just a phase. For them, my next step was already decided. Marriage. I was only 19 when my future was chosen for me. A wealthy family, a successful businessman, a secure life, a perfect match. Everything looked perfect, except my heart. I still remember the night before my wedding. I was sitting alone in my room, just like I am today. There was a mirror in front of me, and for the first time, I didn't recognize the person looking back. I asked myself, are you ready? But the silence was my answer. That night, I opened my diary, and for the first time, I wrote his name, Ion, and under it, just one sentence. I couldn't forget you. The next morning, I became a bride. For everyone else, it was the beginning of my new life. For me, it felt like the end of my story. My husband was not a bad man. He was kind, responsible, and he cared in his own way. But he was not Ion, and maybe that was my biggest emptiness. Years passed. I became a wife, then a mother. Life kept moving forward. People used to say, Zarmina is very happy, and I would smile, because sometimes pretending is easier than telling the truth. Every year, on my birthday, on special days, I would pause for a moment and think, where is he now? Did he ever get married? Does he ever think about me? But then I would stop myself. It's over. It was just childhood. It wasn't real. But the heart never listens. There is something I never told anyone. Every year, I used to visit one place, our school library. I would sit there quietly for a few minutes, and then leave, as if I was searching for something I had lost, and already knew I would never find him. 40 years passed like this. Life moved on, but inside me, I was still that 15-year-old girl, standing in the school garden, watching him walk away, and then, one day, everything changed. A day I will never forget. I was 60 years old at the time. My husband was away on a business trip. My children were busy in their own lives, and I was alone at home, just like today. That day, I don't know why, but I decided to visit my old school. Maybe for the last time, maybe for closure. When I reached there, everything had changed. New buildings, new faces. But the library was still there. I walked inside slowly and sat on an old chair. My heart was beating fast, as if I was waiting for someone, even though I knew no one would come. I stood up to leave, and then I heard a voice behind me. Excuse me. My steps froze. That voice, I hadn't heard it in 40 years, but somehow, I still recognized it. My heart started racing. Slowly, I turned around, and what I saw shook my entire world. It was him. Ion. His hair was white. His face had aged. But his eyes were exactly the same depth, the same feeling. After 40 years, he was standing right in front of me. And in that moment, I realized something. Some stories never really end. They just wait for the right time to return. When the past stood right in front of me, for a moment, I couldn't move. I just stood there, staring at him. Ion. After 40 years, he was standing right in front of me. It felt unreal, like a dream I had seen too many times, but never believed would come true. He looked at me carefully, as if he was trying to recognize the girl I used to be, and maybe I was doing the same. Sir, he said softly. My name, after all these years, still sounded the same in his voice. I felt something break inside me. Yes, I whispered. We both stood there in silence for a few seconds. So many years, so many questions, so many emotions, and yet, no words. You changed, he said with a faint smile. I almost laughed. Of course I did. It's been 40 years. But what I wanted to say was, I never changed where it mattered. He nodded slowly. Still, I recognized you. His words were simple, but they carried something deeper, something unfinished. I looked at him again, properly this time. Time had aged him, but it hadn't taken away what made him him. Those same eyes, the same calmness, the same quiet strength. And suddenly, I wasn't 60 anymore. I was 15 again, standing in that school garden. So, you come here often? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He shook his head. No, this is my first time in many years. I felt a strange disappointment, though I didn't know why. I come here sometimes, I said. He looked at me, surprised. Why? I didn't answer immediately, because how could I tell him that I had been coming here for 40 years, looking for something I had lost? Just memories, I said softly. He understood. I could see it in his eyes. We both sat down, facing each other, like two strangers with a shared past. So, I said slowly, where did you go? He took a deep breath. After that day, I left school. My mother got worse. I had to work full-time. I listened quietly. I moved to another city. Did small jobs. Anything I could find. There was no self-pity in his voice, just truth. I wanted to come back, he continued, but life didn't give me that chance. I felt something heavy in my chest. For 40 years, I had questions, and now, I was finally hearing the answers. Did you ever think about me? I asked before I could stop myself. The question just slipped out. He looked at me. Long, deep, silent, and then he smiled. Sadly. Every day, my eyes filled with tears. Because that was exactly what I was afraid of. And you? He asked. I gave a small broken smile. I never stopped. Silence again. But this time, it wasn't empty. It was full of everything we never said. Are you happy? He asked gently. Such a simple question. And yet, the hardest one. I looked away. My life is complete, I said carefully. I have children, a family, but I couldn't say the word happy, because that would have been a lie. He understood again. He always did. I got married too, he said. Something inside me tightened. Even though I expected it. She passed away, years ago. I looked at him, surprised. I'm sorry. He nodded slightly. She was a good woman. There was respect in his voice. But not love. And somehow, I could tell the difference. Did you love her? I asked quietly. He didn't answer immediately. Then he said something that I wasn't ready to hear. I respected her. I cared for her. But, he looked at me. I never loved anyone the way I loved you. My heart, after 40 years, still reacted the same way. I closed my eyes for a second. Because some words don't lose their power, no matter how much time passes. Why didn't you come back? I asked, my voice almost breaking. Why didn't you try to find me? He looked down, then back at me. Because I had nothing to offer you. That was never true, I said, a little louder than I intended. He shook his head. It was my truth. That silence again. Heavy, painful, real. Do you know? I said slowly. I waited for you. His eyes lifted instantly. I thought you would come back. For the first time, I saw regret on his face. Deep, undeniable regret. I wanted to, he said quietly. But by the time I could, I heard you were married. My heart sank. So close, and yet, so far. I didn't have a choice, I whispered. I know, he said. Because he understood, but it still didn't change anything. We sat there. Two people who had loved each other once, and maybe never stopped. But life had already made its decisions. After a while, he stood up. I should go, he said. And suddenly, that same fear returned. The same fear from 40 years ago. The fear of watching him leave again. Will I see you again? I asked. I didn't know why I asked. Maybe I already knew the answer. He looked at me. Long, deeply, as if trying to memorize me. One last time. I don't know, he said. And then, he smiled. That same soft, painful smile. Some stories are only meant to meet once. And then again. Just to remind us what we lost. My eyes filled with tears. Because I knew this moment was slipping away again. The second goodbye hurt even more. I watched him turn, and for a moment, it felt like I was back in that school garden again. 40 years disappeared, and I was that same girl, watching the same man walk away from me. But this time, I couldn't let it happen again. Ion, wait. My voice was soft, but it stopped him. He didn't turn immediately. For a second, he just stood there, and then slowly, he faced me again. There was something in his eyes. Hope, mixed with fear. Please, don't go like this, I said. I already lost you once. I don't think I can do it again. The words came out before I could stop them. Maybe I was too late. Maybe I was 40 years too late. But for the first time in my life, I wasn't hiding how I felt. He looked at me. Deeply, silently. Amina, he said. What are we doing? It was a simple question, but it carried the weight of 40 years. I don't know, I answered honestly. But I know one thing. I don't want another goodbye. He closed his eyes for a moment, as if he was fighting something inside himself. You have a life, he said slowly. A family, children. A world that doesn't include me, and you think I don't know that? I replied, my voice shaking. I have lived that life for 40 years, but I have lived it without you. Silence fell between us again. But this time, it wasn't distance. It was truth. Raw, painful, unavoidable truth. Do you know, I continued, how many times I wished you would just come back? How many nights I thought, maybe tomorrow I'll see you again. My eyes filled with tears. But tomorrow never came. He stepped closer, just a little, and I could feel it. That same connection, still alive. I suffered too, he said quietly. I buried myself in work, in responsibilities, just to forget you. He gave a small, broken smile. But forgetting you was the one thing I never learned. My heart tightened, because I knew exactly what he meant. So what do we do now? I asked. That question, the one that should have had a simple answer, but didn't. He looked around, as if searching for something, maybe a solution, maybe a way out, but there was none. There is no now for us, he said finally. We had our time, and we lost it. His words felt like a knife, sharp but honest. No, I said, shaking my head. We didn't lose it. We were forced to leave it. He looked at me again, and this time, there was pain in his eyes. Deep pain. Some things are the same, I said softly. You're still here. I'm still here. And what we feel, it never left. He didn't deny it, because he couldn't. We both knew the truth. But life doesn't work on feelings alone, he replied. It works on reality. Reality? That word again. The same word that separated us 40 years ago. And what if, I said slowly, what if we stop thinking about the world for once? What if, just this once, we think about ourselves? For a moment, I saw something change in his expression. A flicker of something. Hope. But it didn't last. Zarmina, he said gently, we are not 15 anymore. His voice was calm, but firm. We can't rewrite life at this stage. That hurt. Because deep down, I knew he was right. But my heart still wanted to try. I'm not asking to rewrite everything, I said. I'm just asking. Don't disappear again. That was it. That was all I wanted. Not a new life. Not a new beginning. Just not another loss. He looked at me for a long time. Then he reached into his pocket and took out a small piece of paper. He wrote something on it and handed it to me. This is my number, he said. My hands trembled slightly as I took it. For the first time, we won't lose each other completely. Those words, they felt like a small light after years of darkness. But at the same time, there was something else in his eyes. Something I couldn't understand. Promise me something, he said. Don't look for the past in me. I frowned slightly. What do you mean? I mean, he paused, choosing his words carefully. The person you loved. He exists only in your memories. And the man standing in front of you has lived a life you don't know. His words felt heavy, but real. I don't care about the past version, I said softly. I care about you, the one standing here. For a moment, he didn't respond. Then he smiled. A quiet, tired smile. Some things never change, he said. And then, he stepped back again. That same distance. That same fear. I'll wait for your call, he said. And this time, he walked away. But not completely. This time, he left a way back. I stood there, holding that small piece of paper. 40 years of silence, reduced to a single number. But somehow, it felt heavier than everything I had carried all my life. I went home that day, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel empty. I felt something else, something unfamiliar, something dangerous, hope, but I didn't know that this hope would soon turn into the biggest truth of my life. Because the next time I saw him, everything changed. In a way, I was never ready for. Some loves don't stay, they just live inside you forever. That night, I couldn't sleep, not because I was in pain, but because for the first time in 40 years, I felt something I thought I had lost forever. Hope. I kept looking at that small piece of paper in my hand. His number, such a small thing, but it carried the weight of an entire lifetime. I told myself I wouldn't rush. I told myself I would wait. But the truth is, I had already waited 40 years. The next morning, I called him. My hands were trembling, my heart beating faster than it had in years. The phone rang. Once, twice, and then, hello. That voice, older, softer, but still the same. For a moment, I couldn't speak. Zarmina, he said. He knew, even after all these years. He knew it was me. Yes, I whispered. And just like that, we were connected again. We didn't talk about big things at first, just simple conversations. How life had been, where we lived, what we had become. But behind every word, there was something deeper, something unspoken. Days turned into weeks. We started talking more often, sometimes on the phone, sometimes meeting quietly. Not to change the past, not to build a future, but just to sit together and feel something we had both missed for too long. Peace. For the first time in my life, I felt understood, not as a wife, not as a mother, but as me, and he was still the same. Calm, deep, honest, but one thing had changed. There was a tiredness in him, a silence that felt heavier than before. One evening, we were sitting together in a small park. The sun was setting, just like it is today, and for a long time, neither of us spoke. Then suddenly, he said something. Zarmina, I didn't tell you something. My heart felt a strange fear. What is it? I asked. He looked away, as if the words were difficult to say. I wasn't planning to come back here. I frowned slightly. Then why did you? He took a deep breath, and then, he said the words. That changed everything. I'm sick. For a moment, I didn't understand. Sick, I repeated. He nodded slowly. It's serious. My heart dropped. How serious? I asked, my voice barely steady. He stayed silent for a second, and then said, not much time. Everything around me felt like it stopped. No, I whispered. No, this can't be happening. After 40 years, after finding him again, life was taking him away again. But this time, forever. Why didn't you tell me before? I asked, my eyes filling with tears. He gave a soft smile. Because I didn't want your sympathy. I just wanted to see you once. That sentence broke me. You don't get to do that, I said, my voice shaking. You don't get to come back into my life and then leave again. He looked at me with the same calmness. I wasn't planning to stay. Tears rolled down my face. Then why did you give me your number? I asked. Why did you let me hope? He didn't answer immediately. Then he said quietly, because for the first time, I wanted to feel what it would have been like if we had a chance. Silence. Deep, painful silence. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to feel. All I knew was, I was losing him again. I'm tired, Zarmina, he said softly. I've been fighting life for too long. I held his hand, tightly, as if I could stop time. You're not going anywhere, I said. Not this time. He smiled gently. Some things, we don't get to choose. Days after that, everything changed. I spent as much time with him as I could. We talked. We laughed. Sometimes we just sat in silence. But this time, it wasn't empty. It was full of everything we never got to live. One day, he looked at me and said, you know what hurts the most?
What?
I asked. That we found each other again. Just to say goodbye properly. My heart couldn't take it. But I smiled. Because I didn't want his last memories to be full of pain. A few weeks later, I got a call. And in that moment, before even answering, I knew. He was gone. Just like that. No last goodbye. No final words. Just silence. I went to his grave a few days later. And for the first time in my life, I didn't cry loudly. I just sat there quietly, like I am sitting today, because some pain is too deep for tears. I looked at his name, and I smiled, not because I was happy, but because I finally understood something. Some love stories are not meant to have a happy ending. They are meant to stay unfinished, so they can live forever. I never got to live a life with him, but I got something else. A love that never faded. A memory that never left, and a story that I will carry until my last breath. Pause feeling, but no pause written. Even today, at 65, sitting alone in this quiet house, I don't feel empty anymore, because somewhere, in the deepest part of my heart, he still lives, not as the man I lost, but as the love I never lost, and maybe that was enough. The end.